Hey guys, in this episode of Pathways to Wealth, I'm interviewing a really good friend of mine, David Gonzalez, who is the founder of the Internet Marketing Party and an affiliate marketing company called Simply the Coolest. And Dave has built a network of 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. And he is probably one of the most connected guys that I know in the online business arena. And in this interview, Dave really kind of breaks things down and gets very real. He talks about how he went $140,000 in debt and the steps that he took to put him on a path to get out of that debt. He also talks about how he built his first 7-figure hypnotherapy business and what it was like to scale that up and then eventually sell that business. And he also talks about why a lot of people look at networking as kind of this really just dirty old school thing, and the way that you can leverage your talent if you are a very personable person, leverage your relationships to actually earn an income and eventually build a business, which is exactly what Dave's done. And now he has multiple income streams because of his innate ability to be a super connector. So, I'm really excited for this interview because Dave is just a wealth of knowledge. He knows a ton of people, and I know you're going to get a lot out of it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, hey guys, welcome back to another great interview on Pathways to Wealth. I'm your host, Chris Dunn, and today I have my good friend, David Gonzalez. Dave, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, good to see you.
This is kind of fun to be actually in person. Usually I do these over Skype or over
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the studio, but I think we got it kind of dialed in.
That's great. I feel like I'm on the Howard Stern show, the Chris Dunn show.
Exactly. So guys, Dave is... I like to call you a super connector. Is that would you say that's accurate?
I resisted that title for a long time.
Okay.
And I'll tell you more about that why in a little bit. But if I had to too many people call me that for me not to I say that that's accurate.
Right. Not that you fit just in that box, but if somebody asked me like, who's David Gonzalez? I'd be like, he knows everybody. Like he talks to everybody. He's like super personable connector. And that's what I wanted to bring you guys on the show, is just, show everybody, I guess, like your world, because there's so many different skill sets. You have some people that are highly technical, some people that like to be the star or CEO, and some people that are just like amazing at making relationships and connecting people.
Yeah, and I can speak pretty quickly here as to why I resisted that title for so long, because there are a lot of people that are, a lot of times networkers are kind of like people you want to take a bath after you take a shower after you've spent time with them, because they're just like, what's in it for me? And they're like the people that just at the party, like you're talking to them, but they're looking over your shoulder because they're looking at who else they can
get my business card
or get something from. Yeah. And so, super connectors, I think, tend to be kind of lumped sometimes in that category. And then the second thing is, a lot of times super connectors can't rub two nickels together. And so for a long time that was me. And I've learned how to monetize my business, learned how to monetize my talent. Mm-hmm. And it's taken me a while, and I'm still actually working myself out of some debt from that time. I think you and I have talked about some of that offline.
Yeah.
But, so there's a part of me that does feel a little bit like, I don't want to be just the super, because so many of the people that I do connect together are people that are amazing at what they do, such that they've if you think of a world-class investor, you don't think like, that's somebody who just wants something from somebody or who can't rub two nickels together. And so if you can connect an amazing investor with a world-class business analyst, that's fun. That's great, and that's what I like to do. But both of those people are people that you tend to think of as adding value. And for the longest time, because I wasn't making the kind of money that the people around me were, I felt like I wasn't adding value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you were adding a ton of value for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I guess, how do you monetize relationships in a way that's cool and like doesn't just ruin relationships, I guess, right?
Sure, yeah. And I think that one group of people that will likely be very interested in listening and watching this are other networkers and connectors and people that and so the way that I did it was by being fortunate to be involved in the internet marketing, online marketing, direct response kind of community where the affiliate game is very, very pervasive. And for those of you listening and watching that aren't familiar with the affiliate game, that's where you basically have someone that gets paid to put someone else's product, service, or offer in front of an audience, and they get paid on a rev share basis. So if somebody's got a huge blog, a huge mailing list, a huge podcast, a huge YouTube channel, and they, like somebody, the Six Pack Shortcuts, Mike Chang and those guys, like they are affiliates for audible.com,
Yep.
and so they get paid every time that somebody listens to go, I should buy this Audible subscription. They get paid forever. And so what I found is that a lot of people in my network had information products or had affiliate programs, and they knew that I knew everyone. So it kind of fell in my lap. And all I had to really do and for the longest time, I was making introductions and people were getting richer, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. So basically you were adding all this value, but it was like for free and you weren't monetizing it. So everybody else was making money. But
because I loved doing it so much, that the money mattered less to me than the relationships. And while on the one hand, that was really good, because that's why I kept getting invited to more and more and more stuff. Because people knew that when I was there, a lot of the people in the online space there tend to be introverts, and they tend to be hermits, and they make their millions in their in their man cave, like on their computers. And so when I'd come to they'd invite 3 or 4 people, 5, 6, 7 people to their party, and they were just kind of like, okay, so let's talk about how we make money. But then they didn't want to share each other's secrets. So I'd show up and it's like, hey, what's up? And I'd bring a bottle of tequila and mixers, and it was fun. And I'd be like, dude, did you know what so and so does? And they did. I was kind of like the social.
you sparked it.
Yeah. And I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
And so for the longest time I was doing that, and then I finally started having people that really liked me for me as a friend, as a person, as a brother, and they'd go, dude, it seems like every time we go to do these things, you're the only guy that can't because you can't afford it. Why aren't you making more money? Like, you're making all these other people so much money. And for the longest, for a while there, that hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Because it was like I was struggling financially and other people were getting wealthier. But at the same time, that was a lesson I had to learn. I had to learn that just because I didn't know how to monetize that or in a cool way, it wasn't their fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
was something for you to figure out.
Yes.
So you kind of had to go from
it's a hero's
using your
journey
skill
kind of
set.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. You had the skill set of super connector, and then you're like, okay, now I need to maybe think like entrepreneur, right? Like, how do you monetize that without ruining what you've spent so much time building?
And that's the other thing, is that I had been an entrepreneur. I had $1 million a year hypnotherapy business that I had a staff of 12 that I ran for 9 years. I was part of. That's why I'm an EO alum, and so.
What's EO for anybody that doesn't know?
Entrepreneurs Organization.
Huge, by the way. Awesome.
And so I already, I mean, for a long time, a friend of mine referred to me as his friend of, like, he's a man of leisure. At the time I wasn't a connector. I had a team, I had a staff, and I had a service business that was helping a lot of people. And I didn't really have to go to work because I'd e-myth that business, and I would go into work for 15 minutes every couple of weeks just to deliver checks.
So what was that? What did that business look like? Were you selling stuff,
Yeah.
consulting,
So
products?
it was one of those businesses where it was kind of like a gym membership or a chiropractic consultation, where you come in to find out if hypnosis will work for you. We'd put these $8,000 full page ads in the Austin American-Statesman, our local main newspaper, and it was an advertorial. It was made to look like an editorial piece, and had a picture of a woman like with her pants 10 sizes too big, and now she's super skinny, going like, one of the headlines was, they laughed when I said hypnosis, ... They're not laughing anymore. It was an old Eugene
Nice.
Schwartz headline that a friend of mine took, and we used it, and it worked like gangbusters. But what people would come in was to find out if, for a free hypnosis evaluation, find out if you can be hypnotized to see if you can lose weight, which everybody wants to lose weight, right?
Yeah, but not everybody's hypnotizable.
Everybody's hypnotized. That's a topic for another conversation.
Okay.
But and that's a previous business of mine. But the long and the short of it is, we would we had people who would schedule their free consultation. They'd come in for their evaluation, is what we called it, and they would buy a $2,000 year-long program. And the problem with that business was that if someone was successful, they had the magic, they had it. Like, we'd give them copies of their CD when they were being hypnotized, a bunch of program sessions, and so they could listen to those at home. If they weren't successful, well, then hypnosis didn't work for me. So unlike Hair Club for Men, unlike the gym, unlike chiropractic, where there's a back end, there's a continuity component to it, where you sell, you spend all that money to acquire a new client, that then they'll pay you, there's a lifetime value there. Our lifetime value was
that one sale, and that was it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so
you scaled that up to $1 million.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Did you sell it?
And then the advertising stopped working as effectively for various reasons. It was before the internet. It was before hypnosis was more commonplace.
Yeah.
And it was before the other weight loss companies in town realized that, hey, every Monday they run an $8,000 full page ad.
So they're cranking it.
Yeah, so they knew that something was working, so competition set in. And we didn't have another medium for getting people to come in, and it was part of a franchise model. So I felt that it was the franchisor's responsibility to, I'd been doing this for 9 years. As an entrepreneur, most of us are kind of restless.
Yeah.
So the fact that I did anything for 9 years was kind of a big deal. So I decided to either sell it or close the doors down for the amount of, I said 9 months from now, we're going to sell 9-month programs, 8-month programs, 7 and whichever comes first. Either 9 months, we're going to stop calling people to come back in for their sessions, because people die, they dwindle off.
Yeah.
Like in any program.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped doing love you calls to keep people from, just let them kind of wither away and from coming in regularly. And then we would only sell programs but we ended up selling it within about 4 months.
Oh,
and
nice.
so that's how I ended up coming into the online marketing space after I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. And I was like, hey, my buddy Michael Lovitch is doing an online business like he's talking about here, and I should learn how to do that. And I think that's the reason that the whole networker super connector label I didn't like for the longest time, is because when I decided I wanted to do what Tim Ferriss had done and showcased in the 4-Hour Workweek, I figured I would either create an information product, or I would be a media buyer, or I would do something in the online.
Some kind of muse that was passive or...
But every time I tried to do one of those things, it was a blessing and a curse that I was a super connector, because I connected immediately with people like Ryan Dice, Mike Dillard, Perry Belcher, Eric Louvier. People that were already doing multiple $1 million a month. Some of them,
all the heavy hitters in the internet
big heavy hitters,
space,
because I had money, I had time, I was intelligent. It wasn't like I was a desperate kind of dumb guy that was just kind of like grasping for something. I had money.
Yeah.
And I had time, and I knew the right people because I had been introduced by the right people. And so it was a blessing and a curse, because I had them to compare against what was the way to do things. And they were already, they already had multiple 100,000 sized lists. And I was just getting started. And I felt like, well, I should be like them because I'm hanging out with them. I'm going out on a boat and getting wasted and having fun and going to all the parties. I felt like I should be one of them, but it was like I was hanging around with a bunch of black belts, but I was a white belt. But no one was wearing belts, and I could just fake it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what you do or how much money you have. And one day I woke up and realized I had over $140,000 worth of unsecured debt.
So you sold the hypnosis business.
Yep.
You got into the internet marketing, and you were hanging out with a lot of the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
How did you go into debt? What, you were just like living a lifestyle without the income, or did you sink cost into building a new business?
Well, yeah, because we didn't sell the business for an enormous amount of money, and there was a part of me that just felt like oh, if I do the right, like things, I've always been, Michael Lovitch, the buddy that introduced me to this whole industry, says Dave's a hustler. He hustles like you're scrappy. You'll make shit happen. And so I just knew that I would figure something out, and I wasn't paying attention. And every once in a while, I would introduce two people that would make a lot of money, and because they were just good, solid people, they would pay me a second tier override on that introduction. And so sometimes I'd get an $8,000 check, a $12,000, and I wasn't paying attention to the fact that I was spending more than I was earning. So I was like, whoa, I just made $12,000 and all I did was introduce. And I didn't think about the fact that that wasn't sustainable or replicatable. It was just a one-off. Like, it's not like that was happening every month.
Right. You were used to the regular checks from the sales from that business, but this was one-off and you were still living up here.
And because I had money in the bank, there's a book called Money Drunk, Money Sober: 90 Days to Financial Freedom by a woman named Julia Cameron that I was introduced to a couple years ago, and that transformed my life. And it talks about the 5 different types of money addicts. Just like there's food addicts, but not all food addicts are fat. Mm-hmm. Some of them are skinny because they're anorexic or bulimic. Some of them are, there's different ways that addiction shows up. And in the money addict type of way, one of the category that I fell under was the big deal chaser, which is the next big deal is going to solve everything. So a big deal chaser doesn't ever look at their finances, because why should they? Like, I'm doing this thing with so-and-so, and that's going to make me $300,000.
Yeah, why worry about a budget today when tomorrow I'm going to strike it?
Yeah, and so based on that, I never looked at my finances, and I had because we run these, we had a $250,000 advertising budget for the hypnosis business. I had 5 or 6 credit cards. I had a $75,000 unsecured line of credit with Wells Fargo, because we ran all of our advertising on credit cards so that we could get the airline miles and bonus points, and we just pay it. But at that point, we were paying it every at the end of every month, so we didn't have any interest. But then when I sold the business, I was like, oh, I'll come up with something. And 1 month became 1 year, 1 year became 2, 2 years became 2.5, with no consistent income and no eye on how much revenue was coming in or how much expenses were. So it wasn't either of the things you suggested. It was just it was like the slowly boiling the water.
Slowly boiling the frog. You're just sitting in there waiting for the next big deal.
And I wasn't paying attention at all until one day, literally, we were on the way to visit a friend who was having a housewarming party, and I know he loves beer. We had brewed some beer together, and I was like, babe, let's stop and get him a couple of 6-packs of some good, like, craft beer. And she looked at me as I got out of the car to the convenience store, and she said, use the business card. Which we didn't even have a business. So the business card was the one that we still had from the previous business. And I didn't even ask her why, but I knew. And it wasn't until we were coming home from the party that I said, why did you tell me to use the business card? She goes, because the personal ones are all maxed out.
Wow.
And I remember,
was that like a wake-up call?
Yeah, I felt like crying. I felt scared. I felt angry. I felt confused. Like, I felt like someone had punched me in the chin, the belly, and in the balls all at the same time.
Oh, man.
It was horrible.
It's a bad combo.
Yeah.
So what did you do from that point? Did that kind of snap you back to reality?
I got kicked in the balls, punched in the stomach, and in the face. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The trifecta. So what happened from there? Did you change your ways?
Spent a lot of time in depression.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's probably, 6, 7, 8 months. There was a point where I started actually feeling suicidal, and ended up coming out of that by focusing on nutrition, using a lot of superfoods with a good friend of mine named David Favor, local, who's a kind of a superfoods guru, kind of brought me out of that slump. I mean, I'll always be grateful to him, because I remember at one point I was going off to a conference to be a connector. Someone had hired me to be an affiliate manager for a big event, and I was dead broke. And all I had was enough money for the airfare. I didn't know how they were going to pay for my hotel. And he cut me a $5,000 check and said, you pay this back whenever you want, no interest. I just want to be a support for you.
Wow.
And I didn't cash the check. And I remember bringing it back to him about 3 months later. I invited him to lunch and gave him back his check, uncashed, and told him how much it meant to me. There was tears in that conversation, just letting him know how much that meant to me, that he had believed in me more than I believed in myself. And that gave me the wherewithal to start getting that plus focusing on nutrition helped me get more of a semblance of being making the gears spin the wheels.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So you were down like your lowest point, almost suicidal, it sounds like.
I never was like, I was thinking suicidal thoughts. It wasn't like I was actually like planning it out or thinking I'm gonna do this. But
you were that depressed where you were just in that state, that flow.
Yeah. That was it. I was thinking, I was having really low quality questions run through my mind.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
So you attribute, some good friendships and nutrition to helping you kind of get a grasp on that. Mm-hmm. How did you work your way out of debt? And maybe let's kind of fast forward a little bit to what your business looks like today.
Sure.
And
the way that I worked my way, well, I'm, just full transparency, I'm still building out some of that, getting rid of some of that, because I was blessed to have my father-in-law consolidate all of that, because it was all like, some of them were like 28%. Like I'm just like totally open book here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
And we went to go see a debt counselor person, and they were like, "Have you ever considered like maybe asking one of your parents if they would consolidate this for you?" And my last name's Gonzalez, so I'm Latino, and like the bravado and the machismo in me was like, no freaking way am I gonna do that. But they were like, have you ever considered that maybe you would be bringing immense joy to either of your parents for allowing them to help you? And my father-in-law had just recently retired, and he had a really, really good job and a long career in the military, and so he had a really good really good retirement package and a lot of equity in his home outside of DC and Vienna, mm-hmm. Virginia, which and so we mustered the courage of we were paid real close attention to our finances for about 6 months, every day tracking our income, our expenses, and then I asked him if he'd be willing to do that, and he said absolutely, how much and when, and he stroked us a check, and so now we just pay him it's like ridiculously low percentage rate, but there's still some debt there, but it's not like we don't use credit cards, any of that stuff. And man, I hope this isn't too open book for you.
No, this is great, man. I mean, so I appreciate you sharing this, because a lot of people, they hear all these stories of success, people that just kind of went from...
And there is a bright side. Like, we're getting to that.
Yeah.
The only reason I mentioned that, like, because I just feel like life just gets better. Like, it would be an implied lie when you said having gotten out of the debt. That mm-hmm. would imply that I no longer have any. But it's a managed debt. Like, at this point, I believe it's about, $40,000 or $50,000. I should look at it, but it's at 3%.
Mm-hmm. And
like, every once in a while when we get a windfall, I'm tempted to just pay it off. But then it's like, my father-in-law's not in any hurry for us to make that $1,500 payment,
And if you can use that money in other ways. I recently did an episode talking about paying down debt and how, like, goal number one is to stop the bleeding by getting your interest rates down no matter what. Like, and it sounds like that was a great move for you, because imagine if you still had 28% interest, it wouldn't make sense to save anything. You just got to get rid of that.
And we
debt.
did that for a while. We did the whole Dave Ramsey snowball thing.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, for any of you that are listening, if you have any debt, do look into the snowball thing, because that changed the game for me. It turned my debt into a fucking video game.
Nice.
It seriously did.
Just
it was like
a game. Like, how fast can you get it done?
Because now it was like me against them. It was like, so you like put in an additional $100 to $200 over what your debt is, and you apply it towards the debt with the biggest finance
percentage
rate.
Yeah.
And then you pay that one down, and then you take that same amount and apply it towards the next biggest one.
Yeah.
And so the amount that you're paying just felt like it was like, that made it fun, because before it was just a dread to pay any of my debt, and I was doing it, but I was making the minimum payment, which I was slowly killing myself.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying like over 10, 15, 20% interest and you're just making minimum payments, that is a life sentence. Like, that's terrible. So it's great to hear like an alternative way that you guys stop the bleeding and that you got that under management and you're still working through it, but you've come out the bad end of it, right? And now you're working on building your business.
And I think we had this conversation offline, but I have enough equity in our home now from just over being there for enough time that actually now I think about it, I'm no longer in debt because the equity in our home surpasses the amount that I owe my father-in-law.
Nice. Awesome,
Boom.
man.
So I just want to say really quick that this feels kind of crazy because there's probably people that tuned in to see how to be a better super connector or how a connector monetizes, and here we are talking about like debt resolution and
Yeah.
plans for
Well, it's a part of life, and
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate you taking this conversation to where you did, because there's a lot of people that are in that same situation
Yeah.
that might be at their lowest point in their life. And this show is called Pathways to Wealth, right? It's
Yeah.
not called We've All Arrived at Wealth and Everything's Pretty. It's let's talk about the down and dirty shit
Yeah.
and the reality of getting out of debt. I mean, I was 95K in debt. I had to work my way out. And I talk to people every day that say, Chris, I don't know how I'm going to make these payments. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And my goal is just to show people real, like that have gone like your path, and show them that there are ways out of it, and you don't have to go the traditional route. You don't have to have a master's in business. You don't have to be a doctorate to make $100K or $1 million. Like there are so many ways to do it. And so I appreciate you showing that. And on that note, let's talk about like where you're at today. Like what's your business look like? Because you've got a couple of businesses. You've got the Internet Marketing Party and your affiliate management business.
It's called Simply the Coolest.
Simply the Coolest.
Yeah. And so, our Simply the Coolest generates about $30,000 a month in revenue, but it's a service business. So we have affiliate managers that manage the relationships between publishers and advertisers, and the advertisers are our clients. They're the ones that have the products, the info training courses that they hire us to find the affiliates and publishers to put their products in front of, so that they'll put it in front of their audience, and then they do a rev share deal. Well, we get a percentage of that, plus we get our monthly management fee. So based on that, it's really helped a lot. To kind of backtrack a little bit to how I ended up from being in that much debt and being in such a low place in my life to this, I had a windfall. One of these windfalls happened in my business to where all of a sudden I had money, and a friend of mine pulled me aside and he said, "Dude, you seem really upbeat. Like everything's going your way." I was like, "Dude, I'm finally not broke." I said, I knew I had all the debt, but I didn't feel broke because I had.
You could breathe
Yeah,
a
it
little
was
bit.
I have so many amazing friends that 90% of the times when we'd go out to stuff, they'd they'd always be like, "Oh, I got you, Dave. I got you, Dave. I got," like people always had me. I was never the guy that I'd reach for my credit card just as a courtesy, but like, I think my dear friends at the time knew, it's like they just liked hanging out with me. So what ended up happening is one of them pulled me aside. He says, "Dude, how could you go like 6 months without working right now with how much money you have?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, do this. And this I recommend for all the connectors out there that are listening." He said, his name's Hollis Carter that gave me this advice. He said, "Do not make any outbound calls, emails, texts, like just stop. And pay attention to who calls, texts, Skypes, Facebook messages you. And that's how you'll know. Just pay attention. Like do this for like 2 weeks to a month. Like just meditate, journal, like go inside and like get more clear on what it is you really want to be doing, and pay attention to who's reaching out to you." Because as a connector, we're usually extroverts, and we're always like, "Hey you, hey you, hey you," and he helped me understand that like I was the one doing most of the outreach. And in that moment, it was really, really confronting, because I felt like I was popular, but I wasn't as popular as I thought I was. I was always the one.
You're the initiator.
Yeah, the initiator. And so at that point, I reached out to another friend of mine, you probably know, Adam Lyons, who is just one of the most brilliant strategic business minds I know. He's just ridiculously smart on the strategic side of things. Every part of his life kind of is a strand that weaves into the other and strengthens the entirety of his life. And I said, "Dude, I want you to help me make my life more strategic." And he said, let me buy you lunch. I said, "Let me buy you lunch." He goes, no, let me buy you lunch. So I'll ask you one question. And that question was real simple. It was, he said, "In 30 years, I want you to imagine you're at a big, beautiful black tie dinner gala event. And there's some dude that's got a beautiful blonde bombshell date that it's their first date. He met her on Tinder or something, and at the one of the music breaks, you overhear her like two tables down say, "Who's this Dave Gonzalez guy?" And like, well, like, why are we celebrating him? Like, what did he do?
Yeah.
How did he make his money? And like he said, how do you want her to answer? And I said, wow, that's tough, because I was at the time I was 42. I was like, man, I'll be 72 years old. It was just such a random number.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, man, I want her to say, or him to say, Dave made his money doing high-level corporate joint venture deals with companies that were founded by like kind of hippies at the end of, like, people that really want to have a positive, lasting, sustainable impact on the world. Like, not just
Not
for
the old stuffy corporate
yeah,
types.
not for shareholders, like the
Yeah.
people that say fuck you to the shareholders. I'm doing it this way because it's the best for the planet.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like they don't ever let the greed monster get the best of them, kind of thing.
But they do big things anyway.
Yeah. Like the guy that started 5 Hour Energy. If you haven't watched the documentary called Billions and Change, watch that. That's the kind of, like, I want to do joint ventures to where I made, at 2% doing $100 million deals.
Nice.
Putting stuff like that and influencing change at that level. And he said, great. So what's something you could do right now? He said, because if you were to tell me you wanted to do like a sustainable version of McDonald's, then I'd say, go get a job at McDonald's today. Like, you need to get your ego out of the way and do things today that will finance and subsidize where you want to end up.
Right. Kind of like begin with the end in mind and then start at now.
And
right?
what he masterfully did was allow me to get my ego out of the way, because I had been an entrepreneur before. And I had lived the lifestyle, and I had been, a man of leisure. I didn't. Being an affiliate manager is kind of like an entry level position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not something that you have to have like multiple like doctorates or years and years of experience. I mean, all you have to do is be good with people and somewhat smart,
Mm-hmm.
And so it felt like a step back. But when he said that, I realized that a guy named Telman Knutson had been calling me for about 3 or 4 calls in a row over the course of a few days, saying he wanted me to be his affiliate manager. So all of a sudden the light bulb switched on, and I was like, I could be his affiliate manager and bring on other clients. Sure enough, he called me about 20 times in less than 2 weeks, and we struck a deal. I told him I needed to have other clients. He said, you're not going to have time for that. And I was like, and here we are 3 years later, we've got 13 clients, and I've got a team of 5. And
so you have 5 affiliate managers that are doing the day-to-day launches and
Yep.
promotions,
Yep.
and you kind of focus on the high level structuring the deals.
Yeah. There's actually, it's me and four other people on the team, so
Okay.
there's 5 of us. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's that side of the business, and then internet marketing party is something I've been doing for 7 years, and I kicked that off because I live in Austin, where there's a ton of big serious online marketers, and there wasn't a real community for that at the time, and so it was a timing thing. I just I said, hey, all these marketing events I go to, there's a speaker standing at the front of a big conference room in a hotel or in a convention center. There's all the people sitting there, but where the real deals are being made is at the bar.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not bring that speaker straight to the bar so they can do something a little more kind of less, a little. They can let their hair down and be cool and share, like,
less network eventy type feel, and more like hanging out at a bar, sharing stuff that's working, right?
Yeah. And so
and you've had some of the biggest names in the industry. I
Yeah.
mean, just a ton of great people. And let's talk about how you started that. I mean, what was the inspiration to start that?
The inspiration was that I wanted to be, it's kind of like the Tony Robbins quote about you're the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, I noticed that, how I told you, I sold the business and I had money and time. Well, there were only so many opportunities to hang out with these people that were doing online marketing without it feeling like I was like always going to their thing.
Right.
So I noticed that there was an increasing number of people that were doing internet marketing in Austin and that wanted to be doing it. So I talked to Eric Louvier at one of his events that he was doing locally. At the time, he had about 40 people working in his company. One of them was Henry Fuentes, who's now one of the co-founders of Six Pack Shortcuts.
Oh, nice.
anyway, I said, hey man, I know this is kind of like your turf, your town. You don't mind if I like put on a networking event? And, I think I brought it up to Ryan Dice as well, and maybe Mike Dillard. I was like, hey, I'm gonna put on this thing, and Eric was like, are you kidding me? That would be awesome. And there's this online forum that kind of, I don't even know how active it is anymore. It was called the Warrior Forum.
Yep.
And he posted in there, hey, Dave Gonzalez, if any of you are in Austin or want to come to Austin, Dave Gonzalez is putting on an internet marketing meetup. Come on down. It's going to be in September. And he like pushed me over the edge. And,
nice.
So he's like, hey, Dave, look what I just posted in the Warrior Forum.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit.
You're like, I guess this is real now.
Yeah. And so
and 7 years later, I mean, so you've been doing this every month. And I mean, it seems like the last one, there was just a ton of people, and it's just continues
like
to grow.
250, 300 people there.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
And we did it. And now we're having people like Ryan Moran that put on Freedom Fastlane Live saying like, hey, I'm going to put on this event in 7 months. Can we make sure that your internet marketing party happens the Thursday before we kick off? So like it's just taking on a life of its own, and it's created a cool new community of people beyond Austin.
Nice.
We do them in San Diego right before traffic and conversion a lot of times. And it's just a ton of fun, and it gives people an opportunity to network with people that they normally only see online and that they're making money with as in affiliate joint venture deals. I mean, I've had people at a party go, dude, thank you so much. I just met so-and-so. We made like $3 million last year, and we'd never met in person.
Yeah.
And they're like, shots, let's do shots. So
it's amazing the conversations that you have at those events and the connections. I know personally, I mean, I've absolutely gotten 7 figures worth of revenue just from the relationships from there. So my advice to any entrepreneur is get plugged in with something like that. Like it's amazing. Don't be a hermit. Get out there.
And by the way, for just it's cool if I do like a subtle plug here. Internet Marketing Party. We have an online community that I, when I say new, recently started because there's a membership component to it, and I'm starting to really add a lot more value there. So
yeah, we'll link it up in the show notes. Sure. Absolutely, man. Go check it out if you guys are interested in like building an online business. You absolutely need to connect with everybody there because everybody in the industry goes to this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dave, what advice would you give to somebody that's sitting there thinking, well, I feel like I'm a connector. I'm always, the social one, or I have a lot of friends, and I feel like I could make connections that make people money. How should somebody go about monetizing that, or how should somebody go about thinking about how to monetize it? Because it is kind of it's an intangible thing. It's not like create a product and launch it. It's, you've got to kind of massage it, don't you?
Right. I think the first thing is to determine whether it's something you want to create as a business or something you want to have as some secondary passive income. Because if you want to turn it into a real business, that changes the dynamic and the model, and I think there's more work involved as opposed to having it be something where you do like a just kind of a one-off, two-off, and which I think would probably be the best way. And that is probably the best way of thinking of it is build like whoever it is that you think would be the person that would pay you for your connections, add enough value for them outside of connections, or with some lower hanging fruit connections that might not bring as much revenue to the dynamic, and just to show them what you can do, almost like a little taste test, like a little sample. But be really genuinely interested in building relationship with that person. So if I knew 75 of the best bird doggers in town, real estate bird doggers, they're really good at it. So I would probably find one that's pretty good and 2 that are okay at it. But I really like you, Chris. Like, I genuinely like you as a friend. Like, even if I didn't know those guys, I'd still want to be your friend. I'd still want to go take walks around Town Lake. Still want to go have dinner, have beers, talk about finance, ask you more about trading. So
start by doing business with somebody you like.
Like somebody you like.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my way, right? Because then that way I could then say, hey, Chris, I got some guys I want to introduce you to, and I'd invite them to drinks or to a dinner or lunch or something, and I'd either introduce you to them one by one, or we'd all like connect together and like let them be a little competitive. Introduce them to you and be like, dude, that one guy brought me like 3 deals. I invested in 2 of them and sold one to another investor of mine in Houston.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, man, if you know anybody else, like, I'd even be like, I want to create an environment where you'd say to me, I'd even be willing to cut you in on these deals.
Yeah.
Now, real estate's kind of like so blatantly obvious, but let's say you work in an environment where whatever, like, just find if you're a connector, chances are you've got a community of some sort. You've got a trusted Rolodex of identify what it is that they have the most in common, and who is it that would want access to those like for you to just basically lob them over the fence one by one. So maybe lob over 1 or 2 to the right person, and then when they see the value, if they don't make the offer, like, dude, I'd pay you for more of these, just that's why you want to make them your friend first and be like, hey man, I think I would probably be able to bring you a lot more business. Do you think there's like a deal we can strike that we can put in writing? And put it in writing, because a lot of super connectors are just such nice, trusting, just genuinely down-home good people.
Yeah.
That they would think like, oh, I don't want to put it in writing because it implies that I don't trust them. If you want to have the conversation about putting it in writing, just say, hey, I found over years that money makes memories get weird, and this is for your sake, for the sake of clarity. It's just so that we both remember exactly what we understood.
Yeah, just write down what we talked about on paper and
it could
it
even be in an email.
Yeah,
because email is admissible in court. Like just a random, like, hey bro, so like we talked about today over beers, you're gonna give me 10% of any deals I bring you.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, by the way, is that gross or net? And just like talk like that.
Yeah.
Actually, judges appreciate when things are written like that in plain English, because law is based off of the spirit of the agreement.
Interesting. Okay.
So I learned that from
So
Michael
for
Lovitch.
anybody that doesn't understand like the mechanics of what you're talking about, like you're talking about like second tier affiliates and like referral relationships, right? So if somebody's thinking, well, I don't really know how to monetize my friendships, I don't think it's about that, right? It's about connecting people that are strategic, that this person has this skill set or these assets that this person could benefit from, or together they could generate revenue. How else would you describe that, or how else would you define that type of business?
First of all, I think what I would say is that what I was trying to get at is to just be able to have an authentic, genuine, like very very frank conversation with somebody that's a friend, and say, hey, I find that like more and more people are calling me a super connector. Do you have any insights for me on how I can monetize my relationships? And you'd be surprised if they're a good friend. They'll probably say, dude, I've been trying to think about how I could pay you, because I think there's a lot of value in your relationships that would make my business more money. I kind of make it seem like it's there. Ask people that you think you connecting them with the right people for advice, and let them tell you how to monetize it. Gotcha. But the way I would describe what you said is to think through people in your network that, here's another thing you could do. Ask people in your network that you believe could be good people to pay you for monetizing relationships, how much they pay for leads in their business, whether it's selling ebooks, whether it's getting speaking engagements, whether it's a mortgage broker, whether it's a freaking landscaper. Like, I'm just doing my best to come up with the widest.
Yeah. I mean, those are completely unrelated things, but everybody needs leads.
Yeah. Like every business has, even Amazon pays for leads. They're the ones that started the affiliate program. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know they started it. I know I think they have the biggest one, and that's
before Amazon.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as an affiliate program. That's where it got started.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So go back and ask people, how much do you pay for leads? And then that's kind of where you can gauge maybe what value you could bring them in a dollar sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if it's not so tangible, like if it's like you just have a hunch that putting 2 people together will bring money, that's where it can get tricky, and that's where it gets sticky. Like if I knew of another, like if I don't know that much about trading, and if I knew another guy that's like, it seems pretty clear that he's just like, he lives in a $12 million mansion and just makes, drives a Bugatti, and he's also a trader, I don't know much about trading, but if I put you guys together, if I was to be like, hey man, I'm gonna introduce you to a guy. If you guys make money, can I get a piece? Doesn't that feel douchey? Because like I
Yeah.
don't know why, how. Like I need to understand the business and the industry, and so that way it's kind of like I'm I'm curating not only the relationship, but I'm making it easy for you guys to link up and make money, and not just a random social connection that you guys then figure out how to make money. Because that would be like saying, like, if you met somebody at if you met somebody at the shopping mall, that now you own, then now you owe Simon Properties money. Like you met a fellow investor
Yeah.
at, like, you're both shopping at the Tesla showroom for your new Tesla, and the guy's like wearing a Scott Trade thing, or I don't know what like the right logo would be, and you all end up doing a ton of business together. Like now, do you owe Tesla and Simon Properties money
Yeah.
for that connection? Like you,
So don't try to monetize all your relationships. Like you
bam.
don't want to
I
get a
told you I
bad
could get
reputation.
tangential here. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
bottom line me here.
So so basically monetize the one. It sounds like you monetize the ones that you like. You personally, if you have a clear plan, you're like, I want to specifically introduce you to this person for this specific product or something, and hey, if you want more, I can bring more people to the table and then identify that relationship. But if it's just a casual, like, hey, I'm just going to connect you,
Right.
then maybe you just let that play its course. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And know that that would be a good way to kick that door open.
Mm-hmm.
Like kick open the door where you want to be. It's like if there's just a feeling you have about why two people should connect, that might be the one that even if they end up making millions of dollars. And then it also depends on the like kind of like the people that you're connecting, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
some people are just noble, just good people that want to see you win, say, hey, and might be for people who are struggling financially as connectors, that say like, hey, go to the noble people in your network and say, hey, I've got a handful of people that I want to connect you with. I'm not sure how you guys are going to make money, but if I make an intro, would you be open to exploring some way to cut me a piece of the deal?
Nice.
Yeah, then that way you're not asking for it, you're asking whether they'd be willing, and you're making it clear that you're not exactly quite sure how, and they're either going to say yeah or let's see how things work out, and let their conscience be the guide.
And then just let it play its course.
Yeah, and don't
Nice.
feel resentful if they don't. The way you want to think about this is, anytime you want to connect two people, chances are good that both of them have done their hard work to get to the point where you want to connect them. So wanting to connect two people without knowing why is kind of an insult to the work that they've done to become badasses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to have a
So-
plan and know where each person is at, so when you make the intro, it's
Yes.
worth something.
So like we're less than 2 blocks away from the flagship Whole Foods. So my daughter goes to school with a partner for John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Foods. So if I know John Mackey, and then I also know Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, right? And if I'm like, I don't know, these guys are two badasses. I'm not really sure if or how they could make money, but I want to connect them. And I connect them, and then I'm like, pay me if they end up doing like a $1 billion joint venture. I like, that's disrespectful of me to have just connected two amazing, brilliant minds and not told them in advance.
So as a super connector, the plan starts with you, and what I'm getting from this is the more clear you can make it for both people, specifically why you want them to meet, the better the chances are that they're going to profit from the relationship and that you're going to be cut into the deal.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's the equivalent to a bird dogger in real estate saying like, hey, I know of a big giant suburb just outside of Austin, and I saw a bunch of for sale signs there. Come on, let's go drive over there, and any deal you do there, you got to pay me.
Right. Versus here's a deal with a motivated seller.
Yeah, the guy just got divorced. He wants to move back to Canada. He wants to do this in the next 24 hours. I told him about you. I told him you're the most noble, like, just honest real estate investor he's ever going to meet. We already had drinks. We've known each other for 4 years. here, let's,
Make
how,
it
how
happen.
much are you going to cut me in on the, in fact, I already have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's,
Yeah.
it's night and day.
That's great. All right. So, Dave, it's time for 5 to Thrive. 5 questions that can help people that are watching this or listening to this thrive in what you've done or what you've learned over the years. So, step 1 is if somebody is thinking like, I want to be a super connector, what's the first piece of advice that you would give them, or the first thing that they should do?
Identify what assets you bring, what capital you bring without getting stuck on financial capital. There's social capital, there's intellectual capital, there's network capital, like what networks do you have access to? There's even resource capital. You know, so identify what assets you have and you can bring to the table so that when you go to start connecting, you show up with value first.
Awesome. And I want to ask a second part to that same question, because I'm sure there's people that are saying, well, Dave, I don't have a network yet, but I feel like I'm good with people and I'm good at connecting. How does somebody start to become a good connector?
I kind of feel like if somebody isn't already like good that way, that they probably should go to your next podcast and be like, what are you already good at?
Right.
And do more.
So it's like you
like,
can't teach entrepreneurship, right? It's kind of like you either got it or you
yeah,
don't.
yeah. Like just think that like that if you aren't naturally a connector, that there's probably better ways for you to like. It'd be different if you're not naturally an investor.
Yeah.
That's worth learning.
Yeah.
But being a connector, like there's not like a clear path where like, well, I know 75 multimillionaire connectors.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they don't exist, but like it's not like a known
It's either
thing.
in you or it's not, kind of thing.
I don't think that that's true, but I just think that that's like one day my dad said, you know, I've never liked liver, and he was kind of mad, and I was like, and he goes, yeah, I just never liked it, and I'm like, well, Dad, you make that sound like you're talking about Brussels sprouts or cauliflower. like liver's not necessarily like, it's not bad for you, but it's not good for you know. It's like, no, he said I've never liked fried liver. I'm like, so what?
Okay,
like,
move on.
I'm not saying being a super connector is fried liver, but I'm saying like, it's not like it's that. You know, you can learn it, but I think if you don't have it in you naturally, then there's like find out what you do have in you. That what do people in your family, your friends from high school, your friends from college, your people in your environment say that, oh my God, Chris is just so good at.
Boom. Perfect. Second question. Do you think there's a book on connecting or relationships that's required reading for people?
Yes. It's called To Be or Not to Be Intimidated by Robert Ringer.
Got it on the bookshelf over there.
And you know why, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, we'll link that up in the show notes too. Do you have a quote or a mantra that you live by?
I don't know that I have a quote or a mantra. My Facebook quote is one by Richard Bandler, and it says, the quote is, remember, life gets better when you're sure enough to be unsure about, but never unsure enough to not do it.
Beautiful. Dave, are you in the camp that everybody should focus on one source of income and go all in on one thing, or diversify and build multiple sources of income? I
recently read Essentialism. So as a result, I would say, and I'm a big fan of MJ DeMarco's Millionaire Fastlane. Mm-hmm. And it's a yes and. Be business monogamous until you have a big exit, and then be business polygamous.
Beautiful. What does true wealth mean to you? Final question.
Yeah, actually, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants for that one, and that's Buckminster Fuller, and these are kind of the definitions of wealth that I've learned from Bucky and from Warren Buffett, and that's how many days into the future you can live without having to work, or without having to put energy into a relationship. If it's got like, it's having what you want and not having to actively work at it. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. So building something that doesn't require effort every single day.
Yeah. So if I give to my wife, to my daughter, to my family so much that I can go a year without giving and that they still adore me and want to be there for me, that's wealth.
Nice.
If I give to my startup or my business so much that I can go a year without giving any attention to it and it still more than pays me, that's wealth. if I give to my health, so that if I went a year eating shitty and not exercising, that I'm still relatively in shape, that's wealth.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Dave, thank you so much for being here, man. Where can people reach you if they want to connect with the Super Connector?
David at Internet Marketing Party. My Facebook is facebook.com/lowercase Dave Gonzalez or David Gonzalez. I don't know.
We'll link it up.
Yeah.
Go to internetmarketingparty.com. Awesome, Dave. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Appreciate it.